All right, welcome to the Prop Talk podcast, where we talk about all things boats. Today, Pat Smith from Elevated Wake Company is joining us. Pat runs a wake surfing school slash boaters education school where he specializes in wake surfing boats. Pat, why don't you introduce yourself? Thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So yeah, I own Elevated Wake Co. We're out of Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, and we do wake surfing, wakeboarding, water skiing, tubing, pleasure charters, all kinds of stuff on the lake. We do coaching on customers' boats and fully turnkey private charters on our boats throughout the lake.
And like most people, this started as a hobby.
Yeah, it did. I've been in water sports since I was a kid. Grew up going to Long Lake up in Maine, and water skiing, obviously, back in the 90s was kind of the thing that we did to start out. So started out water skiing, got into a little bit of wakeboarding, took a bit of a hiatus when we moved to Ohio as a teenager. And when my wife and I got married, we came back to New Hampshire. Obviously wanted to get back into some of those outdoor things that we had neglected for years out there. So yeah, it was a hobby, all since I was a kid, grew up doing it. We bought our first surf capable boat in 2018. And it was quite an experience.
What did you buy?
So we bought a Taiga R21. The boat was pretty good. It was kind of down to that and a Mastercraft NXT at the time. Just price point where we were at with kind of an entry level boat is what we wanted. But I think one of the mistakes I made in buying was hadn't really done wake surfing before, right? So didn't try the boat out, didn't try the wave out, didn't really have a reason to because I couldn't get up. And we spent the first probably 30 days of owning that boat, which we bought in August, by the way. So already kind of late into the summer.
Yeah.
Just completely failing, right? And so like coming from water sports, I played college football, so I was an athlete my whole life. It was pretty frustrating to not be able to figure out this thing. And, you're watching YouTube videos. You think you're doing everything that the videos are saying. And really it came down to getting some help on the boat. And, that experience that we had with that is kind of what had us start thinking about starting Elevated Waco at the time. What kind of pushed it over the edge was in 2020, we sold that boat. And just because of the situation with COVID, we couldn't replace it. And we actually spent a lot of time traveling around different lakes here, getting lessons, doing what we do now with private charters where you go out and you have a fully turnkey experience. And we had some fantastic experiences and some terrible ones, right? Everything from what we feel that we offer as our program, where it's fully turnkey, catered to everybody, to going out with a couple teenagers that had us dealing with the rope and didn't provide any instruction, and it wasn't a great experience. And so we thought, hey, we can take our experience that we had with learning how to use this boat, learning how to try this new sport. We had obviously at that point some experience teaching friends and family, and we can offer like a more premium thing than what we're experiencing some of these other locations.
That's common. I think that in your business type, it always starts with a bad experience.
Right.
You say, listen, there's got to be a better way.
Yep.
And that's how I started in finance.
Yeah.
Right. I dealt with finance companies. I'm like, listen, I know there's a better way to do this.
Yep.
And we're going to find that. We're going to find that way. What's one thing you learned about Taigas, while you owned one?
Yeah. We're affiliated with brands now, right? So I don't want to speak negatively specifically about any particular model. And knowing that the first Taiga we had was pretty good.
Yeah.
And it was a pre-COVID boat. The second Taiga I owned, which is the one we bought when we started the business, was rough. We had a lot of challenges with that. I think what I would say to people, regardless of the make, regardless of anything with the boat itself, it's about the dealer, right?
Yeah, always about the dealer.
If we didn't have the dealer we had with our second Taiga, Elevated Waco probably wouldn't exist today.
No kidding.
We literally had service people at the dock, like 2 service techs, a bag of tools and parts, swapping out components to get us back on the water in 15 minutes between bookings.
Oh my God.
For a large portion of the 2022 season.
And that was Meredith Marina?
That was Meredith Marina, yeah.
So I hear great things about them.
Yeah.
I think what separates a good marina or a good service department from a bad service department is that, I hate saying it like this, but prioritizing.
Yeah.
You're out there representing that brand.
Right.
And I think that speaks volumes that they were out there, with tool bag ready to rock and roll. Like, we're going to make this happen.
Yeah. And I have no doubt, with Meredith that they would do that for any customer that bought a boat from them. I know of dealers on the lake that won't do that with customers that bought a boat,
Yeah.
2 boats at the same time from them,
Yeah.
right? And it's a totally different experience. And so I would say the boat matters, the features it has matters, your comfort on it, the way it rides, especially on Winnipesaukee, that's pretty rough. Like that all matters for sure. But I would say what matters about 2 times more than all of that is, do you have support from the dealer? Are you going to be able to get out back on the water in a timely fashion, right? If you're a customer that's coming up every weekend, like you have a lake house, you're up here every weekend and you're back home during the week, you need that boat to be dropped off on Sunday and be back to you by Friday.
Yeah.
With our first Taiga, we did have some issues. Like every new boat has problems, whether it's a Nautique or a Taiga or a Bayliner, like it doesn't matter. They're all going to have issues. There were times where I would drop off that Taiga on Friday and say, on Sunday and say, Travis, I'll see you guys Friday. And the boat was ready every time.
Yeah.
And I know from talking to their service department, there were times where the manufacturer wasn't supporting them. They were buying parts for me out of pocket and retroactively trying to deal with the warranty side. And like I said, I know there's other dealers on the lake that don't do that. So anybody buying a boat, like the dealer is probably the number one factor, and talk to people that have bought there and have experienced service there.
To piggyback off of that, buy a brand that you're going to have a dealer nearby.
Exactly.
That's super important. Number 2 is I've been in the boat business now for about 4 or 5 years. I'm coming up on year 5, actually, now that I say it out loud. Every single boat that I've sold has had a honey-do list, per se, a week after the customer takes delivery. So that's completely normal to have a boat for 4 or 5 days and go back to the dealer and say, hey, listen, I found this.
Yeah.
And any reputable dealer, whether they're getting, they're submitting a warranty claim or they say, oh, that was our fault, maybe there's a little scratch from yard damage.
Right.
They're going to fix it.
Right. Reputable being the key.
Yeah. Reputable being number 1.
And again, I would refer people to other owners, right? Other buyers that have bought there. Like if you're at the dealership and you've got, you're looking at a Taiga, let's say, and you see somebody pull up with a Taiga that's maybe in the valet program, go ask them about the boat. Go ask them about the experience. Like don't do it in front of the sales guy, but just go, hey, I'm thinking of buying one of these. What do you think? How's the dealer been? How's the service been? Most importantly, the ones that just want to get the check from you and then move on and never deal with the thing again is not going to be a great experience. It's going to get you out of boating, and the boats are too expensive to have that happen, and our seasons are too short.
I mean, you think about it, we run boats realistically, and I hate saying this, is like the week before 4th of July through Labor Day.
Yep.
And that's not a long time.
That's our busy season.
Yeah.
Like literally you'll see a cliff.
Yeah.
Cliff face heading into that and a cliff drop off on the backside.
Yeah. I mean, we get our shoulder seasons on both ends. I mean, there's some beautiful days in June that we take advantage of, and there's some awesome days in September.
In my opinion, September's amazing.
Oh, September's
time to visit the lake.
September's by far the best. Yes, it's a month to be in the lake.
Even if the kids are back in school, if you can make it up on a weekend in September, do it. And we're open. We're open till October usually.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of boats, I mean, obviously you're running an outfit that needs a boat with very specific features. I mean, what's one feature that to you has been a deal breaker in a surf boat? It could be something small, something big. I love hearing this because even things as little as the number of cup holders have turned people away from trying certain models. I mean, what's one thing you went and you're like, I cannot live without this ever again? Or
so for us, I mean, it's really about the wave generation and the adjustability, right? The vast majority of our customers are new. They have never wake surfed before. They maybe have done like what we do once else on vacation, but they need a wave that's tailored to their skill set, right? And so we have been on and demoed every 23 and most of the 24-foot boats on the market up until model year 24, right? There's a couple 25 things that we haven't been on or seen. There are some that are highly adjustable, and there are some that you have a small, short, steep wave and a really big steep wave. For beginners, those steep waves are not what you want, right? We ran into that a bit with the Taiga. I would say that our 23ZX, it was a 2022 model year. The options were that they were short and steep or tall and steep, a little bit more in the way of what Nautique offers. We're currently running Mastercraft, and for us, the amount of adjustability you get out of that wave is amazing. Like I can, as a bigger person on a properly sized board, I can surf on a 1 or 2 out of 7 rapid surf setting, which on our Taiga, for example, that wouldn't have been the case.
One thing Taiga does that I see as a unique feature to a Taiga is the waves are much longer.
Yep.
It's more like you're riding an ocean wave, and you're not riding an ocean wave facing forward. You got to ride the side of the wave.
Yeah. So that's one thing I think you talk about, like beginner mistakes, right? Is a lot of people, right? They're going to open their front shoulder. So when we say that, they're going to face the boat with their chest as opposed to their leading shoulder, which is always going to cause problems. And all of that is really dictated by the shape of the wave, right? So like you're saying on a taiga, the wave comes out from the center of the boat very much at a more straight angle back parallel with the boat. On the Mastercraft, for example, it's more of a J-shaped wave that comes back, kind of curls out. So I'll find myself surfing where I'm actually outside that corner of the boat as opposed to directly behind it or directly behind that corner. And so you got to be kind of cognizant of keeping that front shoulder closed and your chest facing the wave. And again, all that comes back into that wave adjustability and what you can actually do with it, especially for us where we're trying to set it up for, we might have a 8-year-old out that's never surfed in the morning, right? And a 300-pound dude that's never surfed in the afternoon. And in the middle, we've got a group of 20-year-olds that have done it 20 times. They just want to come out and ride. And so we've got to have that versatility. There's things that we have learned over the years of running the business that for us as a business, I would never put on a boat.
Yeah.
Right. So like we're trying to turn boats over pretty frequently. Like we want to have the best of the best and the newest stuff and make sure it's under warranty, because all of that matters to our customer, matters to us being able to continue operations, not have a out of warranty boat that's always broken.
And it accurately represents the brand.
Exactly. The brand that we're working with. That said, like our 2022 Taiga was a 23ZX, which at the time was the top of the line option and had 4 tower speakers and was optioned to the gills with everything you could have gotten. Like thruster, 4 speakers, all of the options that you had in
4 tower speakers.
Yep, exactly. Yep. These days, our customer doesn't find value in that, right? It's like being that most of our customers are learning, they're newer, we're doing a lot of coaching. I don't need 4 tower speakers making a bunch of noise. In addition to that, just like looking at it from a etiquette standpoint on the lake, right?
You took the words out of my mouth.
You don't need it and you don't want it. You don't want to be the guy. And like where we are now, like we're typically operating kind of out front of like Bear Island sometimes, and I'll park at the parking there, right? And so I'm leaving at 7, 8 o'clock, and there's wake boats that have gone out, after the traffic's down, and I'm way up, if anybody's familiar with that area, the second parking lot, the dirt parking lot that's up there, trying to get my truck, and I can hear music down on the water. That's a problem for homeowners. And, I think there is definitely some aspect of like everybody in the industry needs to take responsibility for this and making sure people understand what the best etiquette, what the best recommended rules are, regardless of what the state laws are, regardless of any of that. Keep your music at a reasonable level. You don't need to be blaring it. Nobody wants to hear what you want to listen to. The rider's only 10, 12 feet back from the boat. They can hear the music fine.
Yeah. Especially with tower speakers that point directly at the surfer.
Exactly.
Whoever's behind the boat. I think, and this is just, again, my opinion, it only takes a few.
It does. And it's those few that cause things like the litigation we've seen over the past few years in the Senate and stuff like that. Like one of the services that we offer, we call it Coach on Your Boat. We'll send our water sports coaches to you. So you bought a boat, you might be new to it, you might not be. Like we do advanced riders all the time, but whatever the case is, we go to you, we can bring a driver, we can teach you how to drive the boat. If you're new to that, we can teach you how to wake surf. If you've, wakeboarded and you just bought a surf capable boat and you want to go try that. But we've been on a multitude of boats where we've had to stop the lesson and do some kind of an etiquette thing, right? And so one of the prime examples I can think of, I was with a brand new owner. I won't talk about the boat make or anything else, but we were over by Spindle Point on a brand new boat, and I'm coaching, right? So I'm kind of focused on the rider. I'm not really watching the driver, not watching our surroundings. That's the driver's responsibility. That's why on our boats we have 2 staff,
which is law,
right? But it's
go without that. Yeah.
There are companies that do what we do that will send out one person and they're expected to drive and coach at the same time. The experience is not there because either you have unsafety, less safety at the driver's seat, right? Or you've got a lack of coaching. So anyway, I'm watching the rider, and we go by this area, and I don't connect it in my head because I'm focused on what the rider's doing, but the wave just disappears. And we're talking about a $250,000 brand new top of the line boat from the make that it was from. I turned to the driver, I was like, have you ever seen it do that before? Maybe there's an actuator issue. If it is, we'll go talk to the dealer about it, get it checked out. Never comes back again until about 30 minutes further into the lesson. And this time the wave disappears and the water turns brown. And I look up to my left and we might be 20 to 30 feet offshore over by Spindle Point, where first of all, there's rocks. Second of all, you've got homes, right? I was like, we're done. We're going to go back to the dock. We're going to go over what the rules are, what the distance recommendations are. We're going to look at what 200 feet looks like. Right. And I think that's, across the board on Winnipesaukee, I think like distance is a problem, whether you're riding a jet ski, a bow rider, whatever boat you have. I would be shocked if most licensed boat drivers could back up from you and say, I am now at least 150 feet away, which is the state law. And the recommendation for wake surfing is 200 feet.
I think a lot of people forget that you have to be 150 feet away from a vessel.
Yep.
Underway.
The number of times that we're followed, and it's good intentions. Usually like it's, a boat that's like, oh, that's cool. Let's see what they're doing. But you're in my wake. If this rider that's not holding a rope falls and you're not paying attention, that rider's going to die.
Yeah.
Right. And so, with our business, obviously safety's key. Like we have areas that we go to, we're out there 10 to 12 hours a day all summer. So we know where we're going to go. If it's a busy spot, we don't just ride the same spot every day. Again, going back to etiquette, it's also not a great idea to go out and pass back and forth the same spot all day, every day, all summer.
Yeah, I think etiquette and safety are number one education topics for boat owners, specifically, ski boats, surf boats. As the market progresses, sustainability is going to come in those two forms.
Yeah.
I think most people will agree with that. And there has been a number of different attempts to restrict and or ban ski style boats from lake.
Yeah.
And by restrict, it's almost a ban in
Right.
terms of where they would even let you operate it. And that experience that you're speaking of in terms of you see the water go brown, that's what they're talking about.
That's exactly what they're talking about. And that's stuff that we can't have. And that falls back on everybody from the WSIA to the dealer to like, we offer our service to dealers, right? If you've got a new customer that's never driven a wake boat, your job is to sell the boat. We see that, right? Like you don't have a ton of time to do a complete walkthrough on the boat and a lesson on how to drive it and a lesson on best etiquette and to make sure their kids are getting up and having a good time, right? We offer that coach on your boat service to dealers. We'll go out and make sure your customers are not doing things that are going to get these boats in trouble. When you talk about some of like the legislation and the laws that have been proposed, right? Like the distance offshore is a big thing, right? Waterfront owners are worried about erosion, worried about their expensive docks. We get it 100%. There needs to be some level of logic in that a 40-foot cabin cruiser produces a wake much larger than both of our wake boats do.
Especially when they're not at full running.
Right. They're always, they're always off playing
8 to 12 miles an hour. Like you could surf off of that.
Right. And so there's not really, and then, anybody that's been on, let's say down in Alton Bay on a day where you've got wind out of the north, the waves generated on this lake are 10 times worse and pounding the shoreline way more than a specific niche style of boat. But I'm not going to say that, a particularly uninformed owner of a wake boat going back and forth the same place all summer isn't a problem, right? It absolutely is a problem and it needs to be addressed. When you talk about the legislation though, like some of them are, hey, we're going to move it to 400 or 500 feet off the shoreline. And like you said, it eliminates the use on many lakes because of a number that's not been tested in any way. Like there's not been a single controlled study. You can point to studies that have been done in Wisconsin and other places that are comparing 16-foot bow riders to a 24-foot modern wake boat. Not the same. And also not accounting for the type of boats that, like, you don't have 16-foot boats on Winnipesaukee because it'd be a nightmare. So like a study that actually involves the type of equipment that's being considered on our lake, plus the environmental weather factors, wind, things like that would be great. But as you start to push wake boats out 400 feet from shore, not only do you limit where they can be, but I can assure you, and I mentioned this at one of the hearings down in Concord, it was two winters ago, there will be a death based on the number of people that we see following us when we're following the 200-foot rule and trying to stay out of the main path of traffic. If you're going to push us into the main path of traffic, you're going to have just more issues. Sure, you'll have waterfront owners that aren't complaining about waves hitting their dock, but you're going to have complaints and marine patrol calls and things that they don't have the people to support of people following, crossing too close, et cetera, et cetera.
And some of this role, some of this kind of segues into educating not only boat owners that are, using their boats for water sports,
Right.
but boat owners who are using their boats for pleasure, and correct following distances, keeping the distance, not following directly behind someone that's, surfing, tubing,
Yeah.
wakeboarding, skiing,
Yeah.
etc.
Well, we'll be following the guidelines, right? We're 200 plus feet from shore, and we'll have somebody cut between us and the shoreline. Well, if we're at 200 feet and you're supposed to be 150 feet from a boat underway,
Hmm.
that either means you're 50 feet from shore or you're too close to me.
Yeah, I mean,
And now your waves are just as much a problem, if not more so than mine.
what's funny is this is our third episode, and both of the other episodes, we talk about poor poor etiquette,
Yeah.
poor training. There's no driver's license testing style procedure for boat licenses. And as a matter of fact, New Hampshire's probably going to be you're going to be able to get your boater's license online in
Right.
New Hampshire pretty soon,
Yeah.
if I had to guess. And everyone's got their own philosophies. And I think that the biggest thing that we need to take away from this is that, if you're going to come to the table with a problem, you best come with a solution.
Exactly.
And what is that solution? And again, this is all my point of view, but education.
Education is a huge part of it, right? And I offered to some of the people when the legislation was going through, I said, we will help with that effort, right? We had people reach out to us as a business, right? Trying to fish before the hearings of like, well, where do you operate, right? And so because they were trying to draw maps of like, where's the common areas that people surf, and this is why they shouldn't be there, right?
Mm.
I will take, if you're from an organization that's either for or against wake surfing, I don't care. I'm not going to hold either one against you. If you want to go out and learn what this is actually about and the right way to do it, give me a call. We'll take you out for free.
Yeah.
All summer long. I don't care if you're from the state legislature. I don't care if you're the governor. I don't care if you're from Marine Patrol, one of the lakes associations, one of the conservation associations. We'll take you out for free. We'll show you how this should be done right. And we'll help be part of the solution, right? Because it's imperative for our business. We can't have wake boats be banned or limited to a certain area for our business to succeed. And our business brings a ton of customers, right? We serve over 1,200 customers last year. 1,200 individual people came up and saw us.
Wow.
The vast majority.
Surf behind your boat.
And surf behind our boats.
Oh.
Our total customer count was 1,200 people, just over it. And most of those people are day trippers. Like, we don't really do a lot of business right now with like locals per se, or like week-long stay people. These are people that are coming up to see us and then stopping for dinner on their way home, visiting one of the stores on their way home, right? They're coming up to see us. And so I think for the area, it's important. For our business, obviously, it's important. I think trying to find a solution that works for everybody and help with the education side of things. Like, we've talked about making a video series. We've talked about doing training videos. If those need to be distributed, as a free link to everybody that buys a wake boat in the state of New Hampshire, do it, because it's going to benefit us. It's going to benefit the sport. It's going to keep the manufacturers engaged, right? Because development of the boats is going to stop if the sales tank, because you can't use them everywhere. And so all of that is a huge factor in all of it.
Circling back to, coming up with a solution to a problem. I mean, if you could pull all the levers right now, what solution would you propose and how would you do it?
I think a formal training course especially for wake boat owners, like if we're going to focus on that, especially on the etiquette for wake boat owners, would be paramount. I would like to see it expanded to everybody, like
right at the dealership level.
Yeah, the dealership level. Send them to us as like, so, okay. I'm not a dealer. I don't know the finances behind exactly what a boat costs. I know what part of our program is and what we buy them for and how much that's supposed to be marked up and all that. So I can guess there's a few $100 in there to throw a lesson to the customer. And if we start getting more of those lessons, we'll give you a free training course, like a free video series that goes with, like, we can film it we'll film it 6 times if you want. If you want to put it on your boat, so it's not, in this case, for right now, behind a Mastercraft, we'll do it with every surf boat out there. But I think at the dealer level, there needs to be some level of assurance that the customer leaving knows what they should and shouldn't be doing and how to operate the equipment that they've purchased. It's no different. I bought an excavator for MB Tractor. First one I ever bought, not a trained, excavation guy, but I bought it for a property that we lived at.
You had used a couple at the playground when you were a kid?
Yeah, exactly. The guy spent an hour with me on our property, showing me how to use the thing, making sure I wasn't going to take my wife's head off. making sure I wasn't going to roll the thing over.
Yeah.
When he left, I could operate that well to the point that I wasn't going to get anybody hurt, wasn't going to damage the machine, wasn't going to hurt myself. I think the same thing needs to happen with boats. I'm not saying it's not being done, but there's definitely a, you can see it's a disconnect. And some of it might be people that are buying boats secondhand, right? And
the words out of my mouth.
on our side, right, we need to do a better job as a business promoting the service that we offer with this training thing. Like, I'd love to see more people that just went out and bought a used boat that's 10 years old come and talk to us. Most of the people that we work with on the Coach on Your Boat thing are new referrals from a dealership.
Yep.
So on us, right, that's getting and marketing that a little bit better so people know that there are options for that. But two, there's organizations in the state of New Hampshire. I'd love to work with Marine Patrol on this. Like, put up a sign right in the Marine Patrol office and put it on all of their registration things. Hey, if you need etiquette training, wake boat operation training, go here. We'll do it, right? And I'd love to see that happen, right?
My experience at the dealership level has been very good.
Mhm.
I think the dealers are 100% on board
Yep.
with, educating the customer, saying, hey, listen, I know that it says 150 feet, but if you have the ability to go 300 or 400 feet, do it.
Yeah.
And, they really want to make sure that they're operating the boat correctly and safely. So I totally agree with you that, it can be a little bit of a sharp learning curve if you buy something pre-owned, specifically, driveway to driveway transaction. You
Right.
could buy it from someone who gave you the crash course when you went to test drive it.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of unspoken things that you learn very quickly.
Right.
And if you do them in a situation or environment where you don't really have the margin of error, that's where things can go wrong.
Right.
So I agree with you on that. And there's a lot of humility in saying, listen, I'll take you out and I'll show you just because I want to represent the industry correctly.
Absolutely.
Because there's not a lot of guys that do that.
No. And I think a big part of it too is like when we do these Coach on Your Boat things, we're doing it at your lake on your boat.
Yep.
Right. And I go back to the fact that I would venture to guess that most boat operators on Winnipesaukee, from what I've seen, could not show you what 150 feet looks like or what 200 feet looks like.
No, they have no
I have
idea.
no idea whether that's to the end of this table or out into the parking lot, right? So being able to take the actual customer to a location, be like, look, this is a great place that you can do this. We've got the water depth that we need, right? That's another thing that comes up in these laws, is wanting to keep people out of certain shallow areas. Well, guess what? We don't want to be in areas that are less than 20 feet. We don't want to impact the loons, because the loons nest and hang out in areas that don't have the depth and the width and the things that we need. So we don't need those conversations at the table. We need to show people where they can go, what's the best place to be. If they're on a specific lake, rather than, deliver the boat on Winnipesaukee, get over to Newfound and be like, hey, this is a great spot, right? And you'll see other wake surf boats out there. And I think generally people are trying to do the right thing. And so that's, I guess, another tip is go find some of the other boats. Now, don't destroy their water.
Yeah,
like maybe keep some distance from them, but it'll give you some tips on like, hey, what's the next time I can go out? Maybe I should go check out that spot and see if it's open.
And you make a great point, because we as wake surfers, a lot of, if you've never owned a wake surf boat, you may not know this, but 20 feet or less, the wave is completely different.
Yes,
it's like
absolutely. I go back to the story that I had earlier, right, where the wave disappeared. The reason the wave disappeared on that boat I was talking about earlier
is because it got shallow.
Because it got too shallow, right?
Interesting.
So it got too shallow. The first time we weren't shallow enough, but the wave went away. The second time I saw literally the dirt being churned up when the water turned around, right? And that's how shallow we were.
No one's perfect. That's a great learning experience.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that you can share that, because maybe there's someone out there that, maybe one of our listeners tuning in will say, that's something I definitely want to look out for. Not only environmental damage that'll happen to the bottom of the lake, but
Right.
potential damage that can happen to the boat.
To the boat, to the docks, to the environment.
That's the fastest way to lose the season.
Oh, absolutely.
Is to hit your running gear with something really hard.
Especially these days with parts availability, and there's more boats out there than ever, right? And so going back to finding good dealer, those dealers are overworked in the service departments already. And a short season as we have here, you've just got the perfect storm for if you decide you're gonna, strike prop shaft off a rock, it's gonna be probably the end of the year.
And the last 2 episodes that we recorded, one of the longest conversations we had as part of those podcasts was the service department.
Yeah.
And we've got basically 60 days to get.
Yep.
In some cases 1,000 boats ready.
Yep.
And then another 60 days to put them away before they freeze.
Right.
Which is an interesting, the Florida dealers can't
Yep.
comprehend that, because they just put them in a rack.
Right.
They don't have to worry about
Yep.
cold temperatures, and that's a real thing.
Yeah.
So speaking of, best practices, what you've got some employees, some instructors. What makes a good instructor?
I think the best thing is patience, right? I think I've even found that some of the best surfers, wakeboarders, water skiers aren't always the best coaches. And
I couldn't agree more.
there's an element of, and I have to tell this, so like I'm a bigger guy, right? So getting up for me and finding the right board is more difficult than, let's say, somebody that's 5'6", 120 pounds.
Yeah.
That's like where a lot of our coaches fall, is in that smaller size. And we've had to do a lot of training with our coaches of like, you can't get up the same way and make the same mistakes. You need to be a little bit more on point with your technique when you're either bigger or smaller than the average, right? When you're smaller than the average, you probably have a board that's a little bit too big for you, right? And so it requires a lot more effort to get your heel pressure in, to get the board to flip up to your feet, to then stand up on top of the board. When you're a bigger guy, you've got all the other things working against you. Or, you know, in the case of when I was learning, I was given the entirely wrong board to start. I was given this super thick surf style board, right? Which, again, like the thought process there behind the person that sold me the board was, bigger guy on a 21-foot boat is going to need a big board to get some push. In reality, like a hybrid style Model X or something like that from Phase 5, or a Hyperlight Broadcast, something like that, where it's thinner, is going to sink better. So when you press your heels into that, it's going to flip up easier, and it's going to be easier to stand up on. And both of those boards have plenty of push, as long as you have good feet position on the board and good shoulder control, and have your shoulders parallel to the wave to stay with that wake. And so those are a lot of the tips that we've learned and that we kind of, you know, drill into our staff during staff training for new people to be in a season, is like, it's patience and attention to detail. The things that you might think come naturally to you, or that maybe did come naturally to you when you learned, are the things that these beginners need to focus on and need to get right so that they get up. And we have a huge success rate with getting first time riders up. It's pretty rare that they don't.
When you say pretty rare, I mean, if you had to break that into percentages, we're talking like 1%,
I would say less than 10.
less than 10.
Maybe
Someone who's just not, they try it, they say, no, I'm good.
surprisingly, we have very few people that try it and say no. We do have a lot of people that try it until they're exhausted, right? And that's another thing, is like you have some level of athletic skill set required, and physical fitness required.
Yeah.
You know, try to sink a wake surfboard under the wave, right? Under the surface of the water, and see how much pressure it takes to put that down, right? You're using your legs to do that when you're sort of standing up. So there is like a kind of a cutoff. So most times what we'll find is, with groups that are brand new, you know, there's usually somebody that has drugged their friend group up, and they're the ones that want to jump in the water first. Usually it's like
So true.
the one person that's done it before, right? So they'll get up and they make it look easy. Then the next person is new and they get frustrated, right? So we're giving them all the tips. They're maybe not listening, right? And we try to talk about, like, you got to figure out the right ways to say things, and you've got to try different things. That's another reason why all of our staff are captain trained and coach trained, is sometimes it's just better to switch seats and give another perspective, right? The way that I coach is not necessarily the way one of my coaches coach, and I might see some things that I want to share. And so we'll make that trade. But that second person usually gets a little frustrated because the first person thought it was so easy. They try until they're a little bit tired, and we'll look for that, right? Like, you can tell, like, the board stops slipping up to their feet. Like, all right, you're getting tired. Like, it's cool. It happens. Let's get out. Let's watch a few other people. And what's funny is, more often than not, when they go back in for their second time, they get up right away. Right.
Yeah.
They've watched a couple more people. They're like refreshed, right? And they just pop right up. And so it's super rewarding for us. Like, there's very few people that, like, we've had, like, most of the people that don't believe it or not, we have some people that come up that can't swim.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So those have been like the more frequent ones. I'd say in the past 4 years, we've had maybe 5 to 10 people that, like, told us, hey, I can't really swim,
But they want to come up.
but they want to try and wake surf.
My gosh.
A couple of them
That's interesting.
Yeah, a couple of them got up. I mean, some of them that hadn't swum have done, like, you know, wakeboard or snowboarding or other board sports, and so it somewhat comes natural to them. But there's also a lot of things that don't carry over from either of those. So,
And yeah, no kidding. And right off the rip, I mean, what's the biggest newbie mistake that you see?
I think, like, man, you hear this, if you've ever done water sports and ever gotten instruction, I think the biggest thing, right, is fighting the boat and fighting your body. The people that struggle that first time are the ones that saw their buddy do it, looked easy. Maybe they're usually good at things. They're getting instruction, thinking that they're doing the things we're asking, right? We'll have people will say, like, hey, move your left foot to the left. And they wiggle it, but it doesn't move. Like, you're not moving your foot, right? And then they go to get up and they straighten their legs out. They pull their arms in, they lean back against the boat. my 400 horsepower boat's going to beat you every time. Fighting the board, fighting the boat's not going to work. And it might be cliche, but we do a thing where we work with them. Like if you're brand new, we'll work with you actually on the swim platform of the boat before you even get in the water. And we're looking for you to develop some form of muscle memory that when I pull you by hand with the rope, I should see that board come up. I should see it start to sink underneath your butt, and I should see you roll up on top of it. And until you do that, there's no point in me turning on the boat and doing anything because it's not going to work, right? And so we'll run through that and try to drill some muscle memory in. And we've found that helps quite a bit with like fighting the boat, fighting the board, fighting against what your body wants to do. The less you can do, the better. If you can just kind of collapse into a ball, roll forward, and slowly stand with your eyes up, you'll get up. If you try to fight it and work against it, it's not going to happen.
One of the practices that I do, I have an NXT 22. I always get everyone to sit on the back, the black like padded platform, and assume the position as if you're in the water.
Exactly.
Almost like you're sitting in a chair. You know the position. And I have them hold the rope, and I pull them back. And you exactly as you said, and as someone who's not athletically inept, they're just not an athletic person. I'll say, if you do exactly as we're going to do right here, you'll probably get up. And you nailed it right on the head. I mean, it's just, you see the buddy, one of their buddy goes out and does it. They're like, oh, that looks easy. Like I can try and do it.
And the other thing too with that, right, is like, especially for us, we'll have somebody in the group that probably has done it before. They might not have learned well. Like the way that I get up, having ridden for as long as I do, is not the way I teach people to get up.
Yeah, likewise.
It looks easy. It's not. I also have a lot of coaches that can get up and have terrible form. Like I have coaches that will pull themselves up. They'll pull their arms in, right? We tell people not to pull their arms in. It's not that you can't pull your arms in, right? The problem is you need to think about why you're pulling in your arms. You're pulling in your arms because your body feels that you're falling backwards and your brain says, pull myself forward. The problem is what is actually happening is a balance issue. You're leaning too far backwards. And if I pull my arms in, as soon as I get to my chest, I can't pull any further. And if I haven't corrected the balance problem and I'm still leaning back, my feet are going to go out from under me and I'm going to fall backwards. That's what happens all the time.
I think for anyone just listening, that's probably the best. I'm illustrating that in my head just listening to it.
I mean, the other thing like you can do, right, is like we tell a lot of people, we'll do what you said. So we'll either put them on the sun platform, basically of the boat, or on the swim deck. We'll do it in 2 steps, right? So the first thing I want to see when I start to pull, obviously I want to see the arms stay strong. We'll call it strong arms, right? They can be bent. They could be all the way to your chest, right? But they don't want to move, right? So we'll usually have people, you get them slight bend in your elbows, but keep them there. Don't do this. But I want to see your butt slide all the way to your heels before you do anything, right? What that's representing is getting that board underneath of your butt. You need to get on top of the board. If you start to snowplow, your grip strength is going to go away. You're not going to be able to hold hundreds of pounds of water pressure against the bottom of that board, and it's going to rip out of your hands.
You're exactly right.
That's what was happening to me. The reason it was happening to me when I learned, like I said, I had a board that was way too buoyant, and I didn't have the muscle memory or the understanding of how much I needed to push my heels down, right? I knew I needed to do it. I watched every damn YouTube video that was available in 2018 on how to get up on a wake surfboard, and by the way, some of them were terrible. But I knew I needed to put my heels down, and I was putting my heels down, but the amount of required pressure was not there, right? That's why we put people on hybrid boards. When we start, if you're new, you're going on a hybrid, probably a Model X. That's what we were on this Phase 5.
When you say hybrid, me foamy?
Not a foamy. So hybrid meaning it's got more of a surf shape, usually multiple fins, but a thinner, less buoyant profile.
Got it.
Right. So for our case of Model X, like a more budget-friendly option would be like a Hyperlite Broadcast. Plenty of volume so that you get plenty of push, plenty of buoyancy. However, when I ride skim style and surf these days. I don't ride a Model X anymore. I ride a Key for my skim style, but I will grab our Model X if I'm trying to demo something to a customer, which is basically the board that I learned on once I got rid of the wrong board for myself. And I'll jump back and forth between the Model X and even my surf style board, which is properly sized for me. And the amount of increased pressure that you have to press down with, that you feel in your hamstrings and kind of your glutes as you're bringing that board on you, is substantial.
Yeah.
And so in my case, I wasn't pressing down enough with that super buoyant board. I wasn't getting on top of the board, and I was just snow plowing, right? And then you lose the grip strength, and the rope snaps out from your hands.
Yeah.
So
that's common. I mean, one of the board that I learned on was a skim style board with one fin.
Yeah.
And I did
honestly, it's not bad. Like you're going to be unstable. Like you don't you don't know what edge control is. You don't know how to use the edge of the board to keep yourself stable in the wave. But I'd rather see somebody trying to get up on a skimboard than on some massive surfboard, right? I'll see a lot of like when we do coaching about, I can't tell you how many times we go out. I'm trying to think of the name of the board. It's like a super thick surf style board. It's brown.
It's not the I'm drawing a blank here. I think I know what board you're talking about. It's not the time machine.
Nope.
That's one of my favorite boards, by the way.
Anyway, it's
Like that's a doozy.
so many customers end up with this board. I know why, and I've had conversations. But I would rather see people getting up on a board that's too small than one that's too big, because it teaches you the mechanics on how to get up, which is where people struggle. If you want to then switch to a big board because your wave's small, because you're heavy, because you haven't learned proper foot position and shoulder position to stay in the wave, by all means go for it. But starting on a smaller board is always better.
So for beginners, you're going to recommend a smaller board to get started.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously if there's a larger person, you might want to put them on a slightly larger board.
Yeah,
but
it's
still on the smaller side.
It's still going to be thinner, right? So like for new riders, like we're almost exclusively phase 5 when it comes to wake surf boards. So if you're up to about 250 pounds, you're going to be on one of our Model X boards. If you're over 250, you're going to be on their Trident, which is just a slightly larger version of the Model X for all intents and purposes.
So Phase 5 has been a good brand in terms of partnerships.
Yes,
for you guys.
Absolutely. As a business, we want to be able to provide the best equipment that we can afford, and being able to afford that means getting usually a better price than what you pay at the store. We go through probably $5,000 to $6,000 of boards a year that just get damaged, right? Like it happens. They fly into the boat, when customers fall, this type of thing. But for us, it's worth it to have a high performing board that has the right dimensions for our customers, that's easy to ride, that's stable once they're up. Because in some customers' cases, they have 30 minutes to figure out how to get up, to ride, and to have fun. Like that's why they're there. They're like, most of our customers are there to have fun, not to learn to be a better wake surfer. I would love to get more customers that just want to get more advanced riding technique and skills and progress from I can get up to maybe I can do some more things on this board, right? Like even when we do see advanced riders, there's a lot of little techniques that I think some people don't get because they're not taught, that you can see as a coach and that you want to work on. But getting somebody on the right board, getting them up and getting them to smile in the first 30 minutes. Like there's kind of like 2 milestones for our customers, is the people that are brand new. And as soon as they get up, you're like, got it, right? Like they've had a great time. Like they've accomplished something. For the people that have gotten up, it's usually people that have gotten up but have not really dropped the rope. And so for us, that's kind of the next step, is like, let's get you dropping the rope. Yep. And so like those are the 2 biggest milestones that we see day in and day out all summer long, is one of those two groups of people.
In talking about boards and repairs and damage, do you guys use any repair kits? Do you try to repair them as many times as you can until you say, listen, there's nothing left?
So I mean, most times we're swapping boards yearly. So we'll put up our used boards at the end of the season, sell as many as we can, and replace them with the new model.
Blowout sale.
Yeah, we're able to do that because of the support we get from Phase 5 and the pricing that we can get. We can sell them, as a used board.
Yeah, and it's a good value for someone who's maybe looking to trash a board.
Exactly, and we'll have a lot of people, right, that they came out with us. They want the board that they had success on, and they'll grab it and get it for several $100s cheaper than what they could new.
Yeah, Phase 5 is not cheap for
like a Model X, you're probably, I haven't looked at 25 model prices yet, but usually like $1,100, $1,200.
Yeah,
maybe $900 for Model X, but the key that I ride's easy $1,100.
I surf a mono. They're made out of Utah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with mono. Actually,
good board. It's called the Space Monkey. I think part of the reason why I bought it is because of the name.
I have not been on a Space Monkey. I've been on so this is like, try mine. Going back to what I was saying, right? Like, so before I was, we've been doing elevated wake coat for 4 years, but before that I had we'll call it a real job, like everybody has. But my job was in Salt Lake City. The company I worked for was in Salt Lake City. So I'd be out there regularly all year long, and did a captain charter lesson out there because I wanted to ride. Like I was missing riding here, and I had to be in Salt Lake. So like, all right, we're gonna book something out here, and met a couple riders that are really good, but they rode mono and they didn't have a board my size. Like I showed up and they're like, oh, we we didn't realize. They also didn't know I rode before, so they were like real concerned that like they had these small boards, the bigger dude, this is gonna be a disaster.
Yeah.
But I rode a board that was 2 sizes small for me on a Malibu M240.
That's a good boat.
So a good boat, good wave.
Yeah, great wave.
And big wave if you want it. But I was on a mono 2 sizes too small and surfed. Like, and Phase 5 actually has a video with some of their pro surfers. They go out, and I think they ride, I think it's a Scamp. So the Scamp is like our go-to for kids, like little small kids under 130 pounds.
Yeah.
But these are full-grown adults, some of their pro team, and they do what they call a surf competition, where it's just like, basketball, right? So you got to land a trick. Next guy has to land the same trick, but they're doing it on a Scamp, which is in their case probably 100 pounds underrated for these guys that are on it. But their technique is spot on, that they don't fall out the back of the wave, right? A lot of people think I need a big wave, right? And this again goes back to some of the etiquette thing. I'm putting riders when we're out there on the smallest wave that they can possibly ride on, because it's less intimidating, right? A smaller wave with a less steep face is going to be easier to ride and more stable. So you put somebody on the right board, you put somebody on the right wave, you're not as impactful to the environment, to the lake, to the other boaters, because you've got a smaller wave. And sure, we'll have customers like, yeah, I want to crank it up, like, and we'll do that occasionally. But most times people are like, so Mastercraft, what we run now, you've got 1 to 7. We're usually 3 or a 4 or less. And there are times where we got, newer riders, smaller, female riders, kids, we're half full of ballast on it too. Right. And yet, like, I don't know, it's tough for my captains, because like, they're like, well, like, especially if they're coming from a different boat that they may not, have Mastercraft. I'm like, yeah, you can run rapid surf, but then we go out on training, and they're like, you're not on rapid surf. I'm like, yeah, I start on rapid surf. I put it on the 3, and then it changes entirely, from there. And I'm always tweaking it, right? And I'm not, because another part of it, right, is we're trying to make it the best experience. So for the rider, it needs to be good, but also for the people in the boat. Like, we're not playing a game of like, oh, everybody go sit in the surf side of the boat, we need it listed that way. Like, no, like, I'll drain a little ballast. My ballast pumps hate me. I've gone through so many ballast pumps because like they're just running all day long.
And the rubber impellers.
Yeah, there's that
service item.
It is. Yeah, I think a lot of people forget about those.
Yeah, and speaking of surf boats and all the tech, what's one major improvement you've seen over the last few, or maybe a couple that you've seen since, say, I don't know, your first Taiga? I mean, what's one thing that you're like, this is a game changer for the surf industry?
I don't know that I could say one. I mean, if I was going to say one that was a game changer for the industry, I guess I would probably put it under the option of a thruster.
Thrusters. Yeah.
The reason I say that as being a game changer for the industry and for these type of boats is it does open the boats up to somebody that's a little uncomfortable. They're not easy to drive. And if you're coming from anything with a stern drive type of propulsion, it's a foreign concept. Like, I can imagine, I can think back to 2018. Yeah, our 2018 was the first time I had really driven a true wake boat and owned one. It was nerve-wracking docking at the public docks that we have around here that are built for boats that are 4 feet wide.
Absolutely.
But the thruster makes it a much more approachable thing. And so I say, that's good for the industry. It's good for wake boats. It's good for getting people that might otherwise be concerned about the maneuverability. If you have to trailer daily, getting it on and off the trailer, if you're docking in a public space, all of that stuff. However, it has also, I guess, in some ways opened up those boats to people that maybe shouldn't have those boats, but
yeah, I mean, Mastercraft's done a lot with their DockStar technology too.
DockStar is great. We have it on one of our boats.
It's almost like you're not driving an inboard.
Yeah, it's. I think the one thing people need to understand with DockStar is it's not a cure-all. So like, you can overpower those 2 small rudders. If you just jam it in reverse and expect to steer left, it's not going to happen. But if you're patient with it, if you still use some of the best practices of using your momentum and using the proper rotation and keeping your boat in and out of gear and those type of things, it will back up to the left, and it's awesome.
I'd say you nailed it on the head. Definitely low speed.
Yeah.
Idle speed.
Yep.
I would say, if you had to say how similar it was to a stern drive, I'd say you're halfway there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not all the way there,
yep.
But it's got a lot of the same maneuverability that a stern drive would have, or maybe an outboard, depending on what you're on.
Exactly.
What direction do you see wake surf boats heading with some of the newer technology coming out in terms of, I think I sent you the link, it's Arc Surf.
Yeah, so
out of California.
Arc's interesting. So we actually talked to Arc 2-3 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Believe it or not.
Interesting.
I
want to see one.
So there was one here last year. I was busy with customers. It was like a weekend day during the summer. Like I don't have the time during those hours to be demoing boats, at least not with my involvement like inside the business with where we are now. But um, we had a couple customers and one of our coaches' families that went out. They were impressed with the boat. The wave wasn't quite up to par with what Mastercraft offers. I think, just looking at the system that they have, like the tab style system that Mastercraft has, that Taiga has, that Centurion has, have developed substantially even just since like our 2018 boat. Like Taiga's gone through 3 iterations, for example, of TAPS 3 since we bought our first Taiga. They might be on 4 now. I don't know. I don't keep up with all of them, but I think ARC probably has some development work to do there. The biggest thing though with ARC and electric boats, and I think Nautique found this out with their electric boat that's no longer offered, right, is range is going to be critical and infrastructure is going to be critical. That's EVs across the board, whether that's electric dirt bikes, electric cars. There's not the infrastructure to support them right now. In the case of ARC, right, if we were to go do that or add one of those or a couple of those to our fleet, we could probably get away with 2 of them, but we would have to charge a much higher price because for half the day that boat's going to be on a charger. With our gasoline boat, we pull up the gas dock and 20 minutes later, we're back on the water with a customer.
I think that type of boat's going to fit a really specific type of person.
Yeah.
And arguably, the marine industry is the best suited for electric, electrification.
Absolutely.
But, piggybacking off of that, not everywhere.
Right.
So like Lake Winnipesaukee, where we're located, perfect spot.
Yeah.
You've got docks. Everyone's got power at their docks, and the lake's 72 square miles or 71 square miles.
Right.
You'd have to go to each end of the lake 3 times to run it out of battery.
Yeah.
And you take it back to the dock.
Yeah.
And plug it in.
For most users, most families, right, they're going out 2-3 hours, maybe in the morning, maybe they go out another 2-3 at night when the lake's died down a bit.
Yep.
The boat will last for that amount of time, and it'll charge overnight. It'll charge end of the day while you're not using it. They quote an hour. They quoted an hour for us on level 2 charging. Obviously, that would require a high power level 2 charger
200
on the
right?
dock. Yeah,
That's
pretty high power. So, but level 1 charging, like your standard 240 volt plug that you'd see like in your garage. Like you see if you go buy any EV today, that's the one they give you for free.
Yeah,
you're looking at 4 to 6 hours charge time, right? So overnight. By the next morning, you went out that evening, you're back up to full charge. The problem I think with the Nautique version, right, was I think their battery was a little bit small. Yeah. So they didn't really have the range and the time. And I think it was like 1.5 to 2 hours tops was just not going to be sufficient for most people. Even for a school like us, that wouldn't work. We're out 10 hours a day. I need 5+ boats just to make up for the one that we have, right? So like
an hour is a long time, especially when you're billing by the hour.
Yeah.
And Nautique switched from that electrification, and they sort of doubled down on that. I think it's an Inmar diesel.
Yeah, Inmar diesel.
Have you served one of those?
I have not, no.
So I've got a dealer out of New York that has had one or has at least spent time behind one. Yeah. And he tells me that, we talked earlier about the abruptness of trying to hold back a 400 horsepower boat.
Right.
With the turbo diesel, or I think it's a 4-ish liter V8.
Okay.
He tells me that it's as soon as the turbo spools up, right there. Yeah. It's got there's no like with a not naturally aspirated V8 whatever, or maybe even a supercharger where it's more of a linear torque curve. Yeah. This is like nothing and then everything, which is a challenge.
Yeah.
For beginners.
As a rider or as a driver, trying to feather the throttle with that would be challenging.
Yeah, because the boost is either on or off.
Yeah.
But where you see a lot of those are in countries that don't have a lot of infrastructure, like vacation destinations, where diesel's more prevalent,
right?
And where they run those boats for like, I don't know, 5-10 years at a time.
Yeah.
And the people that are using them don't really care about the quality of the surf wave. You're operating it. You're running it in the ocean where there are other waves.
Right.
It's just interesting to me that they switched from, hey, here's the future. You get what, 45-minute surf.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you know what the statistic was? How long you got out of a charge on that?
I think on the GS, electric GS, it was like less than an hour. I think like hour tops if you're just kind of nursing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely not long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Like I said, ARC quoted us, like they were like, you can get probably 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right. Especially so like in our case, right, we're not, like with our boats, they're not running the whole time we're out there, right? We've got customers meet us at the dock at the start time of their activity. They've got to get on board Hopefully they've done their waivers ahead of time. Some of them haven't, so we've got to go run through those, and then we got to get out to where we're going to surf. And then there's a lot of instruction, right? Like we do pride ourselves in giving substantial good instruction. If you don't want it, we won't give it to you. If you just want to ride and have somebody that's going to pull the rope in and throw it back to you, we'll do that.
Yeah.
But most of our customers are looking for some level of improvement and instruction. And so we're giving that in between. So there's a couple minutes downtime. Like our average session, the boat's probably running for 70% of the actual session time that we're out there. And the rest is getting the equipment out, coaching the riders, all the things that we need to do.
Have you seen the no throw wake system?
I have, yeah.
Are you thinking, have you thought about implementing that?
I have not, because of two reasons. It's expensive and we have to have a spotter. We have to have a coach.
Mhm.
You know, like there's
That's a good reason. That's a very good.
there's advantages to it, right? Like we could have the coach focused on coaching and then the rope just dangles there, right? But like another thing that we run into too is like when the rider's getting coached, if they haven't connected in their brain, I probably should grab the rope that's floating next to me, they end up 20 feet away from the boat. We need to circle around and waste too much time. So in our case, because we're talking to them and coaching, it's better to have the coach like, hey, grab the rope, hold on to that, and then let's go through what we're going to do. And I think if it was just dangling next to their head, they probably wouldn't go make that connection. So yeah, I don't know. With the rate that we turn over boats and the type of coaching that we do, I don't know it'd be a great fit. It's funny. Like I said, we spend quite a bit of time in Utah, and actually ran into the owners of the place before it launched. I don't know if he owns the trailer. We snowmobile a lot, right? So, he worked at, I think he was one of the owners of, I think it's Elevation Trailers in Utah. And so we were looking at buying a new snowmobile trailer from him, and got talking about Elevated Wake. He's like, what do you guys do? He's like, oh, we got the perfect product for you. He's like, it's coming out in a couple of weeks. I'll send you a link. And it's super interesting. But I think for our use case, I'm not quite sure it's a great fit.
I'd be curious how it hands up, or how it holds up in a commercial setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's very well built.
Yeah.
It's all billet aluminum. It's got a stainless steel, gas pressurized strut. Like it looks like they put a lot of time and thought into developing that.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I haven't looked at with it is what ropes you can use. Like, I don't know if it comes with its own rope and handle.
I'm sure it does.
We almost exclusively right now are using joystick ropes. So if you've seen those, they don't have a triangle on the end. They actually originally were just like a straight rope with a bunch of knots and literally I think it was like a padded straight handle in the end.
Yep.
Now it's more of a T-style handle. Most of our customers like it. We've got a couple that are like, experienced riders. They're like, I'd rather have a regular handle, and I get it. But the reason that we use it is it's almost impossible to get your hands and limbs and stuff caught up in it. So that's one of like the few ways you could get injured wake surfing right now. Like you can either run into the back of the boat, which is pretty uncommon, like requires a little bit of lack of care, or a lot of people, they'll like stick their arm through the handle, or even if they've just fallen, right? Sometimes the rope just gets tied up around you. And so this completely prevents that. So just, again, going back to the safety aspect of what we have to do. And that's just the rope right now that we choose. It works great for us most of the time. I wish it was a little more durable. We go through like 2 or 3 a season at like $180 a rope, but the handle material is made to be really soft. So, they don't hurt people. You drop them back into the boat, throw them back into the boat. They don't hit people in the head and hurt them. We're a dealer for them, so we carry them. We have a lot of people buy them from us, but for our commercial use, I would love a little bit of a stronger handle material on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no really balance between like soft and forgiving, and then rugged and durable.
Exactly.
But anyways, coming to the end of this episode, I like leaving or ending the episode with this question, and that is, what's the best boating advice you've ever been given?
I mean, we could go to break out another 1,000. They're expensive, but I think realistically, we kind of touched on it a bit. Is especially it's new or experienced drivers, riders, whatever. Just go slow, right? Like around the docks, maneuvering a boat. Not when you're out in the middle of the lake, but when you're maneuvering around people, trailing your boat, don't be in a rush. Like there's no hurry. The easiest way to control, especially a wake boat like this, is to be slow, methodical with the throttle in and out of gear. That's the easiest way to drive it. And people that are rushed or easily flustered, it doesn't work out for anybody, whether you're docking or trailing or doing any of that.
So go slow. I tell everyone, when we're on the boat, we're on boat time.
Yeah. It's funny because like we'll have one of the biggest questions I get from kids is, how fast does this thing go? I'm like, man, it's not really, it's propped and designed not to really go fast. Think of it more of a tractor than a drag car.
Yeah, it's a big water tractor. As a matter of fact, Heyday, heyday surf boats. They made one
WT,
called
right?
the WT water tractor.
Gotcha. Exactly.
But anyways, that wraps up episode 3 of Prop Talk. Pat, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Awesome.